What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars walks onto a morning show set, ready to share his latest project, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to tear him down? In just 33 seconds, a simple interview question would spiral into one of the most shocking confrontations ever broadcast on live television, ending with security escorting a major celebrity off the set while millions watched in disbelief. Jamie Foxx arrived at the Good Morning America studio that morning with his usual charm and energy. He'd been looking forward to talking about his new film, a passion project he'd spent years developing. The audience was packed, the cameras were rolling, and everything seemed perfect. But from the moment he sat down across from Sam Champion, something felt off. Sam barely looked up from his notes as Jamie settled into his chair. No warm greeting, no friendly banter, just a cold stare and an unsettling smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So, Jamie," Sam began, his voice dripping with condescension, "let's talk about this movie of yours." "I've heard some things." Jamie leaned forward, still maintaining his professional composure. "Yeah, man, I'm really excited about it. We've got an incredible cast, and the story is something I think people are really going to connect with." Sam cut him off before he could continue. Right. But here's what I want to know. Do you actually think you can pull this off? I mean, let's be honest here. Your track record lately has been, well, questionable at best." The audience went silent. You could feel the tension crackling through the studio. Jamie's smile faltered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. "I'm not sure what you mean by that, Sam. I've been blessed to work on some amazing projects." "Blessed," Sam repeated, laughing in a way that made it clear he found the word ridiculous. "That's one way to put it, but let's talk facts. Your last 3 films barely made a dent at the box office. Critics weren't kind. So why should anyone care about this one?" Jamie took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep his cool. "Well, every project is different. This one is personal to me. It's about family, redemption, and second chances. I think those are themes that resonate with everyone." "Personal," Sam said, practically sneering now. "Everything is personal with you, isn't it? You know what I think? I think you're trying to stay relevant in an industry that's moved past you." The audience gasped. Even the crew members standing off camera exchanged shocked glances. This wasn't normal interview behavior. This was an attack. Jamie sat up straighter in his chair. "Sam, I came here to talk about my work, not to be disrespected. I've been in this industry for decades, and I've earned my place." "Earned your place?" Sam's voice rose. "You got lucky with a few roles, and now you think you're untouchable. Let me tell you something, Jamie. Nobody is untouchable, especially not someone who keeps making the same mistakes over and over again." "What mistakes are you talking about?" Jamie asked, his voice steady but his jaw tight. Sam leaned back in his chair, looking thoroughly pleased with himself. "Oh, where do I even start? The failed comedy special, the album nobody asked for, the production company that can't seem to get anything off the ground. Should I keep going?" "Those are cheap shots, and you know it," Jamie replied. "Every artist takes risks. That's what creativity is about. You try things. Some work, some don't, but you keep pushing forward. Risks." Sam laughed again, that same cruel sound. "Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like desperation. Tell me, Jamie, when was the last time you actually had a hit? And I mean a real hit, not something that just barely made its money back." Jamie's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "I'm not going to sit here and let you tear apart my career on live television. That's not why I agreed to this interview." "Oh, you agreed to this interview because you need the publicity," Sam shot back. "Let's not pretend otherwise. Your movie needs all the help it can get, and we both know it. You came crawling to us because you need this platform." "Crawling?" Jamie's voice finally showed his anger. "Man, I don't crawl for anybody. I was invited here as a guest, and guests are supposed to be treated with respect, something you clearly don't understand." Sam waved his hand dismissively. "Respect is earned, Jamie, and frankly, I don't think you've done anything recently to earn it. You show up here expecting us to fawn all over you, to give you free publicity for a movie that's probably going to tank anyway. Well, I'm not playing that game." "This isn't a game," Jamie said firmly. "This is my life. This is my work. And you're sitting there acting like you have the right to judge everything I do." "I have every right," Sam countered. "I'm a journalist. It's my job to ask the tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." "Tough questions?" Jamie stood up now, his patience finally exhausted. There's a difference between tough questions and personal attacks. You crossed that line about 5 minutes ago. Sam remained seated, looking almost amused by Jamie's reaction. Sit down, Jamie. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? You've been attacking me since the moment I sat down. Every single thing out of your mouth has been negative, condescending, or just plain disrespectful. And now you want to tell me I'm making a scene? The producers were frantically signaling from behind the cameras, trying to get control of the situation. But Sam ignored them completely, focused entirely on his confrontation with Jamie. Maybe if you could actually take criticism without falling apart, we wouldn't be in this situation, Sam said. But no, you have to act like a diva. The second someone doesn't worship the ground you walk on. Criticism? Jamie's voice rose. You haven't offered a single piece of constructive criticism. All you've done is insult me, my work, and my character. That's not journalism, Sam. That's just being cruel. Oh, please. Sam rolled his eyes dramatically. You celebrities are all the same. You live in your bubbles where everyone tells you how great you are, and then you come out here and can't handle a real conversation. A real conversation involves two people talking to each other with mutual respect, Jamie said. What you're doing is grandstanding. You're trying to make yourself look tough by tearing me down. But all you're doing is showing everyone watching what kind of person you really are. Sam's smile finally disappeared. And what kind of person is that? The kind who uses their platform to hurt people instead of inform them, Jamie said quietly. The kind who thinks being mean makes them important. The kind who's forgotten what it means to treat another human being with basic decency. How dare you? Sam sputtered, his face turning red. I've been doing this job for years. I don't need some washed-up actor telling me how to conduct an interview. Washed up? Jamie shook his head. There it is again. You can't help yourself, can you? You have to get in one more dig, one more insult, because that's all you've got. Sam stood up now too, facing Jamie across the desk. You know what your problem is? You can't accept that you're not the star you used to be. The world has moved on, Jamie. Maybe it's time you did too. My problem, Jamie said, his voice low and controlled, is that I made the mistake of thinking I could come on this show and have a professional conversation. I thought we could talk about the work, about the art, about something meaningful, but instead I walked into an ambush. Nobody ambushed you, Sam insisted. I asked you legitimate questions about your career. You attacked my career. Jamie corrected. There's a difference. A legitimate question would be asking me about the themes in my film, about the challenges of directing and starring, about working with the cast. But you didn't ask any of that. You went straight for the jugular. Sam crossed his arms. Because those are the questions people actually want answered. They want to know if you're washed up. If this movie is going to be another failure, if you're even relevant anymore. No, Sam, that's what you want to know. Or rather, that's what you want to make people believe. Because if you can tear me down on your show, maybe people will think you're some kind of hard-hitting journalist instead of just a bully with a microphone. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This had gone so far beyond a normal interview that nobody knew what would happen next. You need to leave, Sam said suddenly. If you can't conduct yourself professionally, then you need to. Leave my set. Jamie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your set? Last time I checked, this was Good Morning America, not the Sam Champion Show. And I'm not leaving because you tell me to. I'm leaving because I have too much respect for myself to stand here and be verbally abused on live television. Security, Sam called out, his voice shrill. We need security up here now. Don't bother, Jamie said, already moving toward the edge of the set. I'm going. But before I do, I want everyone watching to understand something. This right here, what just happened, this is everything that's wrong with media today. It's not about information anymore. It's not about having real conversations or helping people understand the world. It's about creating drama. It's about tearing people down for ratings. And I won't be a part of it. 2 security guards appeared, looking uncomfortable. They clearly didn't want to be involved in this situation, but they had their orders. Gentlemen, Jamie addressed them directly. I'm leaving voluntarily. You don't need to escort me. I can find my own way out. Protocol. One of them said quietly, almost apologetically. Jamie nodded, understanding that they were just doing their jobs. I get it. Let's go then. As he turned to leave, Sam couldn't resist one final comment. Running away, Jamie? That's very on brand for you. Jamie stopped. For a moment, everyone thought he might turn back around. might continue the argument. But instead, he just spoke over his shoulder, his voice calm and clear. "I'm not running from anything, Sam. I'm walking away from someone who isn't worth my time or energy. There's a difference. Maybe someday you'll learn it." The audience erupted. Some people were applauding Jamie, others were shouting at Sam. The studio had descended into chaos. Producers were running around trying to figure out what to do next. Camera operators didn't know whether to keep filming or cut away. The whole carefully controlled environment of morning television had completely fallen apart. Sam stood at his desk, his face still red, looking around at the mayhem he'd created. For just a moment, you could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, as if he was finally realizing that maybe he'd gone too far. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Well," he said, trying to regain control of the situation, "that was certainly dramatic. When we come back, we'll be talking about..." But nobody was listening anymore. The damage was done. Jamie Foxx walked off the Good Morning America set with his head held high, flanked by security guards, leaving behind a host who had just destroyed his own credibility in front of millions of viewers. The walk from the set to the exit felt like miles. Every staff member Jamie passed had the same expression, a mixture of sympathy and shock. Some wanted to say something, to apologize on behalf of the show, but the security guards kept everyone at a distance. Jamie appreciated that. He didn't want to talk to anyone right now. He just wanted to get out of that building and away from the toxic environment Sam Champion had created. In the green room, Jamie's publicist was already on the phone, doing damage control, but Jamie waved her off. There was no damage to control on his end. He'd done nothing wrong. He'd simply refused to sit there and be disrespected. If anything, he felt lighter than he had in months. Standing up for himself, drawing that line in the sand, it felt good. "We're going to release a statement," his publicist said, hanging up the phone. "No," Jamie said firmly. "We're not going to say anything. What happened in there speaks for itself. Everyone saw it. They know what happened. We don't need to explain or defend anything. But Jamie, people are going to talk. The media is going to spin this every which way." "Let them talk," Jamie said, grabbing his jacket. "The truth is on camera. Millions of people watch Sam show his true colors. That's all the statement we need." Back in the studio, Sam was struggling to continue the show. The energy had completely shifted. The remaining guests looked uncomfortable. The audience was restless. Even his co-hosts seemed to be distancing themselves from him, giving short answers and avoiding eye contact. The show that had started like any other morning had turned into a disaster. During the commercial break, one of the producers approached Sam. "What were you thinking?" she asked, her voice tight with anger. "That was completely unprofessional." "I was doing my job," Sam insisted, asking the tough questions. "That wasn't tough questioning," the producer said. "That was a personal attack. You crossed so many lines I've lost count. Do you have any idea what kind of fallout we're going to face from this?" Sam's jaw tightened. "Jamie Foxx couldn't handle a real interview. That's not my fault. You called him washed up, Sam, on live television. You told him he was desperate and irrelevant. That's not journalism. That's cruelty, and it's going to cost us." But Sam wasn't listening. He'd convinced himself that he was right, that he'd done what needed to be done. The cognitive dissonance was complete. He couldn't see what everyone else in America was seeing clearly, that he'd just committed career suicide on live television. As the show limped to its conclusion, social media was already exploding. Clips of the confrontation were being shared thousands of times per minute. People were taking sides, though the overwhelming majority were supporting Jamie. Hashtags were trending. Think pieces were being written in real time. The entertainment world was reacting with shock and outrage at how Sam had treated his guest. Jamie, meanwhile, was in a car, heading away from the studio. His phone was blowing up with messages of support from fellow actors, directors, producers, and friends. People he hadn't heard from in years were reaching out to tell him they were proud of how he'd handled himself, that he'd done the right thing, that someone needed to stand up to that kind of behavior. One text message in particular stood out. It was from a young actor Jamie had mentored years ago. "Thank you for showing us that we don't have to accept being treated like that. You just taught a whole generation of artists that our dignity is worth more than any publicity." Jamie read the message twice, feeling a swell of emotion. Maybe walking away from that interview had been about more than just himself. Maybe it had been about drawing a line for everyone in the industry who'd ever been bullied or belittled or made to feel small by someone with a microphone and a camera. The car pulled up to Jamie's hotel. As he got out, a few fans who'd been waiting outside rushed over, not for autographs, but to tell him they'd seen what happened, and they supported him completely. One woman, tears in her eyes, thanked him for standing up for himself. "You showed my daughter that it's okay to walk away from people who don't respect you," she said. "That's more important than any movie." Jamie hugged her, feeling the weight of the morning finally settling on his shoulders. It had been intense, emotional, and completely unexpected. But he didn't regret a single word he'd said. He'd meant every syllable. Inside his hotel room, Jamie finally allowed himself to decompress. He sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the conversation in his mind. Had there been a way to handle it differently? Could he have de-escalated the situation before it got so heated? Maybe, but at what cost? How many insults was he supposed to smile through? How much disrespect was he expected to absorb in the name of professionalism? No, he'd made the right call. Sam Champion had created that situation, not him. Sam had chosen to attack instead of interview. Sam had turned what should have been a pleasant morning chat into a confrontation, and Jamie had simply refused to be a victim of it. His publicist called again. "Jamie, I know you said no statement, but the offers are pouring in. Everyone wants you on their show now. They want to hear your side of the story." "There are no sides," Jamie said. "There's just what happened. And everyone already saw it. I know, but people want to support you. They want to give you a platform to talk about your film, to discuss your career, to have the conversation Sam should have had with you." Jamie considered this. "Maybe, but not right now. Let's give it a few days. Let the dust settle. Then we'll see." After hanging up, Jamie turned on the television, curious to see how the news networks were covering the incident. Every channel seemed to be talking about it. Media analysts were dissecting every moment of the confrontation. Body language experts were weighing in. Former guests of various talk shows were sharing their own stories of being treated poorly by hosts. What had started as one incident on one, the morning show had sparked a larger conversation about how the media treats celebrities, about the line between tough journalism and personal attacks, about respect and professionalism. Jamie hadn't intended to start a movement, but that's exactly what seemed to be happening. One news anchor summed it up perfectly. "What we witnessed this morning was a masterclass in maintaining dignity under fire. Jamie Foxx showed us that you can stand up for yourself without losing your composure. He drew a line, and he did it with class." Meanwhile, Sam Champion revealed himself to be exactly the kind of interviewer that gives journalism a bad name. This isn't going to be forgotten anytime soon. Jamie turned off the television. He'd seen enough. The public had already made up its mind about what had happened. There was nothing more he needed to do or say. The interview spoke for itself. He thought about his upcoming film, the project he'd gone to Good Morning America to promote in the first place. In a strange way, Sam's attack might have actually helped generate buzz for it. More people knew about it now than would have if the interview had gone smoothly. But that felt like a hollow victory. He would have preferred to talk about the work on its own merits, not as a footnote to a confrontation. Still, there was something poetic about it. The film was about standing up for yourself, about finding your voice in a world that tries to silence you. And here he was, having just done exactly that in the most public way possible. Life imitating art, or maybe art predicting life. Jamie's phone rang again. This time it was a fellow actor, someone he'd worked with years ago. "Man, I just watched what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Jamie said, and he meant it. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I feel like I just lifted a weight off my shoulders." "Good. Because what you did in there, that took courage. A lot of people in our position would have just sat there and taken it, afraid of making waves or damaging their image. But you stood up. You said enough is enough. That matters." They talked for a while longer, two professionals discussing the reality of their industry, the power dynamics at play, the way fame can make you a target for people who want to prove they're not impressed. It was a conversation Jamie had needed. A reminder that he wasn't alone in facing these challenges. When he finally hung up, Jamie felt centered again. The morning had been chaotic and confrontational, but he'd navigated it the only way he could, with honesty and integrity. He hadn't attacked Sam personally, he hadn't made threats or lost his temper completely. He'd simply refused to accept unacceptable treatment. And there was nothing wrong with that. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the hotel room. In a few hours, the evening news would do their deep dives into the incident. Tomorrow, the morning shows would all be talking about it. Late night, comedians would make jokes. The cycle would continue for days, maybe weeks. But eventually, it would fade. Something else would capture the public's attention. The news cycle would move on, but the lesson would remain. Jamie Foxx had shown that you don't have to accept being disrespected, not even for publicity, not even on live television. That sometimes the most professional thing you can do is walk away from an unprofessional situation. That dignity and self-respect are worth more than any interview or any amount of coverage. And somewhere in America, a young artist watching the whole thing unfold would remember this moment. They'd remember that when their time came, when they faced their own Sam Champion in whatever form that took, they had permission to stand up for themselves. They had an example to follow. They had proof that you could draw a line and survive. That was Jamie's real legacy from this day. Not the confrontation itself, but what it represented. A refusal to participate in a culture of cruelty. A stand for basic human respect. A reminder that at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to do our work with dignity, and nobody has the right to take that away from us. The phone buzzed with another message. This one from his daughter. "Proud of you, Dad. Love you." Jamie smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. That's what mattered. Not the headlines or the hot takes or the analysis. Just knowing that he'd conducted himself in a way that made the people he loved proud. Everything else was just noise. He stood up, stretched, and looked out the window at the city below. Millions of people going about their lives, most of them probably talking about what had happened that morning. Some supporting him, some supporting Sam, most just trying to make sense of how a simple interview had spiraled so completely out of control. But Jamie knew the truth. It hadn't been a simple interview from the start. Sam had come in with an agenda, a desire to prove something, to make himself seem important by diminishing someone else. And when that agenda met someone who refused to play along, combustion was inevitable. The only question had been how it would end, and Jamie was glad it had ended with him walking out on his own terms, rather than sitting there and enduring abuse for the sake of appearances. That would have been the real loss, the real failure, not the confrontation, but the submission.